Hello everyone! I'm back to talk about a lunar eclipse. And I bet you guys are wondering, a lunar eclipse? When? Well, stay tuned for this video and you will find out. So, we're going to talk about the lunar eclipse on November 8th, which is just in 5 days from now. And we're also going to talk about how lunar eclipses happen. So, if you want to know if the lunar eclipse, I live on the East Coast. So this time is for me in the East Coast. But if you are on the West Coast or in the Middle East, or in the middle of the country, or if you just want to know if it's visible in your area, you can look up this time, and I will also have a website in the video to show you guys that you can look to see if the lunar eclipse is visible to you, and it will show you when the peak is. So, what is an eclipse? Well, in this picture right here, to quickly explain what an eclipse is, because this is very important. In simple terms, an eclipse is when two things cover each other. You can see my eyes. Now you can't see my eyes. My eyes are eclipsed by my hand. That is an eclipse for you, in the simplest terms. And there's two types of eclipses, a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. And a lunar eclipse happens when there is a full moon, because the Earth's shadow is being casted onto the moon, which causes it to change color and look red. And a solar eclipse is when this moon is blocking the sun and it goes dark for a few minutes. So, how often do eclipses occur? Well, a solar eclipse, as I said, occurs when the moon casts a shadow on the earth, on the sun, I mean. And we don't see this shadow because the sun is being blocked, obviously, so you could think about the shadow being the moon. And to also further explain this, the moon is tidally locked, which means we only ever see one face of the moon. So that means when there's a solar eclipse, the side that we never see is facing us. But it's dark because the sun's light is being blocked because the moon is blocking it. So therefore, we still can't see the other side of the moon. That's why it's called the dark side of the moon, because the sun never shines on it for us to see it. So it faces us, we just can't see it because space is dark and it's only light when the sun is shining. And depending on where you are in the rotation of the earth, the sun is shining or it is not. And then a lunar eclipse, as I said earlier, is when the earth casts a shadow on the moon. And both of these happen twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. And they happen 2 weeks apart from each other. So I have two cards right here that I want to read. Quickly, I will start with the solar eclipse because that recently passed us. I believe that was October 25th, or it could have been a little bit before that. I will have the date right here. I did not talk about it because it was not visible from North America. Typically, it's not visible from North America, and on the rare occasions that it is, I would love to try to see it. Actually, I think I did almost like 2-3 years ago. And it was so partial that it was just like a sliver of the sun being covered by the moon. I was like, that was it? That's how I felt. So, a solar eclipse, during these events, the sun and moon are in the same zodiac sign. Viewing a solar eclipse, though you should never look directly at one, is a spiritual and visually enriching experience in astrology. This event is perfect for manifesting your dreams and embracing new opportunities because it's a new moon, new beginnings, solar eclipse. Lunar eclipse, which is where we're coming to. This only happens when the moon, on a full moon, when the sun and moon opposing each other. Energetically, this is like a mega full moon. It is associated with major world events. Think about it, lunatic, things go crazy on a full moon. It can bring up a ton of emotions because the moon is about water. So if the moon is full, then we're full of water, full of emotions. A lunar eclipse is a perfect time to do some reflection and let go of anything you're holding back. So that is the theme for November 8th. And really we're leading up to it. So like they say the week leading up, so the 7 days leading up to this lunar or solar eclipse is important. But it's like really strong 3 days before or 3 days after, because it's still in that moon phase. As I had mentioned, why are solar and lunar eclipses are important? Here's a picture of a solar eclipse. This is the dark side of the moon that we cannot see ever because the sun does not shine on it. And then here is the full moon when there's a lunar eclipse. And depending on the blockage, because if something is being eclipsed, there's a blockage because you can't see it, so it's almost like a blind spot. So they have different meanings. So to run down moon phases real quick, there are 8 phases, but I will talk about the secret 9th phase, which is why this is X'd out right here, because this should really be the dark moon. But in astronomy, in science, that is not a thing. So there are 8 total phases, and this equals out to 28 to 29 days, which is, if you're a female or if you know anything about the menstrual cycle, they say that the lunar month is like a menstrual cycle. That's how long a cycle takes within a woman from one period to another. So these are the 8 phases, and then there's 4 distinct phases, which is the new, the first, the full, and the third. And why are these called quarters? Because if you look at this looks half full. Why is it a quarter? Because there's 4 phases, 4 major distinct phases. This is like 0. Then the first quarter, think of it like dollars. You have 1 quarter, 25 cents. Then you're at full. You're halfway through the cycle. You're at 2 quarters, 50 cents. Now you're at the last quarter. You just need 1 more quarter. You're like 75% way there. You have 3 quarters now. And you're only 1 quarter away. And that's the cycle of the phases. And there's 2 energetically significant phases, which is the new moon and the full moon, which symbolizes a solar eclipse and a lunar eclipse. And quickly, there was called the dark moon. When I was creating this PowerPoint, it was on the 27th of October. And as you saw, we was just leaving the dark moon. It's literally dark. I can't see a sliver of light, but they say this is the new moon because the new moon is supposed to represent a sliver of light, as it says right here. It occurs when they're in the same, energetically, the new moon is a phase full of new beginnings. Take advantage of this lunar phase by establishing new routines. It reflects the zodiac position of the sun and that of its season. For example, if the sun is in Scorpio, the new moon is also in Scorpio. People born in this phase are typically adventurous and down to explore new experiences of life. So that's a little bit about the new moon. And really the dark moon is when there's no light. A new moon it's starting over. You're going to see that light there. This right here then should be your new moon. But they call it a waxing crescent because it's starting to grow light. And they say when it's a new moon, you don't see it, so therefore it's starting fresh again. When in reality, it's ending, and this, when you see the sliver of light, is starting the new cycle. So you're at like this, again, a transition period, like a death period. So this dark moon is a time to really reflect and not do anything because you don't want to rock the boats. It's like doing something in the dark, blind. You got to be really careful during this time. But it's also really good because it's like rest and peace, because no moon means stillness. So the new moon, as I talked about, this is what happens when we have a solar eclipse and the dark side of the moon is facing us, and this also means we don't see the moon at night. So if you ever see the moon during the day, that means we've just came from a new moon, and that means we theoretically came from an eclipse. But a solar eclipse happens when the sun and moon exactly line up. This is still considered an eclipse because they're just about close enough to each other. And a full moon, oh, I forgot to mention, new moon is the beginning, so it's the start of the cycle, and the full moon represents really the middle of the cycle. But if you think about it, it's full, so you've reached like your maximum peak, so all you can do is go down. So therefore it's like your end of a lunar cycle almost. And this is the face that's always facing us, and it's completely opposite of the sun. So it's like sun here, moon here, we're like directly opposite of each other. And this is why we see the moon at night, because the sun set, well, the moon is now up in the sky. If the sun's up in the sky, well, it's in the sky somewhere, the moon is in the sky somewhere else. So there's ways to track these events and when to know them. You can easily do a Google search. When is there a solar eclipse? When is there a lunar eclipse? What phase of the moon are we in? What zodiac sign are we in? But this specific website right here called mooncalendar.astroseek I really love, because it gives you body parts as well. But it gives you clear as day, even when they change, even when the moon changes signs, or when there's what time there was a lunar eclipse. I was right, the solar eclipse was on October 25th. So, this is what the birth chart, well, this is what the sky will look like in 5 days. We're looking into the future. So we are currently in Scorpio, and here's the sun, and directly opposite is the moon. And these lines right here represent your aspects. Now you do not see houses here, because depending on where you are in the earth, these will appear on different parts. Like, let's say that, like this for example, the sun's in the sky, so therefore it would have to be daytime. But if it's nighttime, that's in a different place. In nighttime, the sun will probably be right here where the moon is, because it's now flipped. So therefore, instead of it being in, let's just keep it original. This is Scorpio, so the 8th house, and the 2nd house is opposite that, Taurus. So if the sun is right here and I'm in it's daytime, then in nighttime the sun's going to be directly opposite in this position. Therefore it's in the 2nd house. So therefore it's going to mean a little bit differently for me than what it could mean for somebody else, because even though they're in the same zodiac signs, they're in different houses because we're on different parts of the earth. So that's why they don't show the houses. And if you want to like look up how that affects you, you can do that on a Google on a website, and do what they call transit, where they'll lay over a chart over top of your birth chart, and it will show you how it affects your birth chart. But these are the central focuses, these red lines that I'm going to talk about. Well, this specific triangle you see, and then this one blue line, because these lines are coming from the sun. And anything the sun touches, remember, it's the life force and how we see. So anything the sun touches is what is on focus and what the spotlight is on. So we're going to be talking about that, and then there's some challenges a little bit, but there's also some ease. So that's going to be so we're going to be learning about how this lunar eclipse is going to be feeling for us. So let's talk about how there's a conjunction. Now, a conjunction is when they're literally touching each other. like this. Or they could just slightly be off like that, but they're close enough to basically be looking like this. So a conjunction means we're holding hands. Actually, forget that. That's for another aspect. A conjunction basically means we're hip. We're like basically joint together. We're one body. So the sun is conjunct with Mercury and Venus. And Venus is how we choose to love, experience life, what we choose to find joy in, but also how we choose to communicate these ideas. And Scorpio is about transformation. So this lunar eclipse is how we choosing to communicate how we feel during this time of transformation. And we might be feeling a bit like heavy and weight on our shoulders because Saturn here, Big Papa, or your karma or authority is like on your shoulder, and you feel like you need to be doing something, and you're just like, oh, I need to do this because I feel like something is nagging me to do it almost. So you feel uncomfortable with it because you're just like, I don't want to do it that way. But Saturn and Aquarius says, hey, this is how you should probably be doing it. Think about it in a different way. Approach it a different way. And Scorpio's just like, I don't want to. And then the moon is over here just like, I don't want it either because I think I can do it this way, because they're total opposites of each other. So the sun thinks one way and the moon thinks the other, but they both have the same common ground. And Saturn's sitting here in the middle looking at both the sun and the moon like, I'm looking at both of you two having a problem. And I don't know how to fix your problem because neither of you are going to listen to me. But I'm watching this because I'm in the middle of it. So like you really got to consult with Saturn, really sit with Saturn, because this is like the point. So this is where the release is going to happen. So either the sun or the moon has got to give or find a compromise, and you just got to work. It's really about working through this one, really taking the time to discipline yourself and take the time to think about this, because this is just a lunar eclipse. As they said, a lunar eclipse is personal reflection and letting go of anything holding you back, and that can be uncomfortable. But we're in Scorpio, which is all about taking these transformations, so we should be feeling comfortable with this. But we do have some help by Neptune. Sorry about that, guys. My camera died. Go figure. It has been a while since the camera has died on baby Crone. I'm a bit long-winded today, huh? So, to continue off, lastly, this was the last slide of the presentation. Typical. We're talking about the trine, and as you see here in the trine, to briefly bring back to recap, the conjunction is when they're basically connected by the hip and form one energy together. So Venus, Mercury, Sun are all forming one harmonious, communicative, love to communicate, love to share ideas, love to share my experience of what I'm feeling right now, essentially. However, there's a problem, as we was talking about, with Saturn trying to help be the mediator between the sun and the moon, because like the ego is just like, yeah, we're going to do it this way, but the inside, the moon is just like, no, but I want to do it this way. And Saturn is just the third party, just looking at both of y'all like, figure it out. This is one of the lessons, and I'm here watching you, making sure this lesson goes over smoothly, or if it doesn't, reinforce it just a little bit, because you know Saturn likes to crank it up a bit because it's the authority, and we know how annoying the authority can be, like the police and other rules and stuff. But hey, those are put in place to be a guideline and make sure that everything is going correctly. But as we were saying, those are the challenges. So what does these blue lines in a trine represent? Well, a triangle represents one leg of a triangle. There's 3 legs. So in if there was like an actual square, this, like, I mean, if there was an actual triangle, this would be different. This is a triangle, but this is half of a square. That's why it's called a T-square. So this right here, if you had another one connecting to Cancer, because a trine has to be harmonious elements, and water is harmonious with itself, so that's why there's a connection between Mars and Pisces, because they're both water elements, hence the color. And they on the planets just happen to be within the same amount of degrees within each other, that they're able to be like, oh, let's hold hands. And this holding hands is basically like, hey, pass me some. I need this, like, it's when you think about it as having a can ear, like a can to your ear with a string attached to the other person with a can in their ear, and then you like talk with a cup and then put it back to their ear, put it back to your ear. That's basically what it is. You're able to communicate, and this communication is able to get through, because it's almost like you're holding each other's hands and you're just like, hey, we roll with each other, we good, you got me, I got you. If you have problems, then you can help me. If you have problems, I'll help you. So Neptune in this trine, only with the sun, but it's also, because it's with the sun, it shows that it's an important part to be focusing on, and that is to not get bogged down during these times during the lunar eclipse, because you might feel heavy, weighed down, too busy thinking about what you could be doing or what you should be doing, and then you're thinking you could be doing other things, or maybe you just don't want to take the approach that you feel on the inside because it's inward and you want to live in your reality rather than live on the inside. However, it might just be good enough to take that Neptune energy, and Neptune symbolizes spiritualism, but also imagination, dreams, being creative, getting to use the energy from the divine heavens to create and do things that you want. And a lot of this can be from dreams. You know, turn your dreams into a vision and make those visions and become a visionary and create your reality. This is what Neptune is about, but sometimes you can get deluded in that, or sometimes you can go crazy and think too much or go into la la land. But the sun here is able to keep you in reality, because that keeps you centered and focused, because it has Saturn over here watching every move it's got. So Neptune over here just like, yes, I get you. We can't lose focus. I'm sorry if I lost focus, but I'm back on course now. You right. Because the sun's just like, hey, Big Papa's watching. Could you help me, please? And Neptune's like, oh, okay, I got you. I'll help you. My bad. I'll get back on track. You right. We all the same go. I don't know what I was thinking. And that's basically how the planets communicate with each other through these different aspects. And this is what the lunar eclipse is about this year, at the very end of the year. And because it's the end of the year, the next 2 years, this marks the end of the 2-year cycle, where it's going to be visible in the northern hemisphere. So for the next 2 years, we're not going to be able to see a lunar eclipse even. It's hard to see a solar eclipse, but definitely we won't be seeing any lunar eclipses for the next 2 years. So this lunar eclipse is almost like the last chance to like really self-reflect and really think about this, because you won't have this opportunity again until another 2 years, where you have to revisit, because it's a cycle. 2 years reflect, 2 years break, 2 years reflect, 2 years break. So, and just to quickly brief over some of these, Pluto is in another harmonious aspect, except Pluto, I will say, is more important with Neptune, because these slow ideas that we're getting from Capricorn, and Capricorn is an earth sign. So, and Capricorn knows how to master the earth and know how to physically manipulate the earth to do what they need to do. So Pluto, being the slowest planet and stays in there for so long, this 26 degrees means that probably in the next couple of months, because this isn't days for Pluto, because Pluto takes forever to go through a zodiac sign. This means Pluto's got a couple more months before it's out of Capricorn. So that means it has taken a good amount of time to understand the physical world and study the physical world and figure out how to use the physical world to its advantage. So Pluto is helping Neptune, because now Neptune making the dreams and visions a reality. Hey, everything that I've been studying in the physical world, I think I got an idea on how I can use this information. And now Neptune is sharing it to the sun, like, hey, I know you're having a problem with Saturn, but I might have a solution for you. I got this creative thing that I've been cooking up in the back. I think this might be good. And the moon is over here all like, whoa, 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 I didn't approve of this. What is this? I was doing this other thing. I think this will work. Why are we trying this? You know, it's ever like different ideas for different people, and it's like we're all having a fight, and so this could represent a time of feeling unbalanced, maybe a little bit, because this is the only shape in the birth chart. So that means this is a major pattern, as they call it, and a pattern stands out because a shape. We're humans. If we didn't have shape, we would be a blob. So these energies, yeah, they're touching each other, but if they don't form like one cohesive shape, communion circuit, then it's just like energy all over the place. So this square, half of a square, not a full square, only half the problem. I believe if Lilith, well, I don't believe, I know if Lilith was over here in Leo instead of Cancer, then there definitely would have been another problem. So thank goodness Lilith was not there, but there could be another planet that I do not study, or an asteroid that I do not study could be possibly here, because even though the houses are empty, they don't fully 100 be empty. There's so many things you can study, as I said, in astrology. So this is just like the surface basic level. So if you go deeper and deeper, there's so much more to interact and understand, that these lines will just quadruple and multiply as you go. So this is like bare basic overview, like taking a slice of a specimen and looking under it under the telescope and just getting the basic overview without going deep into it and looking at the contents. So this is like a basic overview of what the major energies to focus on during this lunar eclipse, because it is time to reflect, and during this time of reflection we need to be aware of our energies and how we may come off in the world, because the way we can come off in the world can be unhinged a little bit, because we got this built up tension in us, and maybe we don't know what to do with this built up tension, especially if you're not in tune with yourself, and you could just be like, man, why am I just like angsty, or like I feel like this impending looming feeling that I should be doing something, but why is this feeling coming over me now when I haven't been like feeling this way? So there's like things like that to like really look out. If you start studying the stars, firstly start studying yourself, but then studying the stars and how those stars affect you today will give you an even better understanding of who you are, what is affecting you today, and how to predict how you're going to be feeling in the future before it happens, and therefore you're able to adjust, prepare ahead, and be ready. So thank you, and I hope to see you guys in the lunar eclipse. But before that, I want to share a picture with you guys. This is the picture of the moon I just took last night. And this moon is in between the first quarter and the waxing gibbous. And as I said, the full moon and new moon are 2 weeks apart. So the first quarter represents a week, 7 days apart from from the new moon. So therefore, because we have 5 days until the full moon happens, we're in this in-between stage of being a week, but not but more than a week, but it hasn't been 2 weeks, so we're just like slightly past that. So this shows you where we are and how long we have. The moon is your time. It's your clock. This tells you that we're just about 1 week away from a new moon, a full moon. And if this image was flipped and the light was on the other side, you would know we're just a week away from a new moon. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy this, and I hope you get to peek at the moon, and hope to see you. I will show photos of the solar eclipse, of the lunar eclipse, because I will be taking pictures. Whew. I will see you guys later. Bye!